Good evening. Welcome to our TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments. This evening we'll be learning about strategies for success on the Texas EOC exam for 8th grade math and Algebra 1. My name is Ruth Casey. I will be the moderator or the host for this event. Welcome. Thanks for being here. We're expecting quite a few people for the live event. And so when you join, you're automatically muted, so you don't need to worry about your video or your audio. You just need to be able to see the presenters and see the slides and hear them as they speak. We will be using the WebEx chat panel to share comments and ask questions. So if you want to take a second or two here and locate the chat panel, if that is an option that your mobile app or whatever device you're using has for you for WebEx. When you send a chat, please select everyone or all attendees from the, not all attendees, everyone, yes, from the drop-down menu. How about try it now if you'd like? We invite you to select everyone or an option that includes everyone and share your name and location. All right, I'm looking up and down the chat. Thanks so much. Some devices have an option of all attendees, and that sounds like everybody should see it, but what we've learned is if you choose all attendees, sometimes the presenters don't get it. So it would be great if you choose something that looks like everyone. Excellent. Thanks so much. Again, we'll be using the chat panel throughout the evening for questions and comments. We will be recording the event. This is recorded to view later or review later. So if you experience any audio or video issues that can't be resolved during the live event, please feel free to watch it later. Also, it's a great strategy to come back and have another look at what they're saying and doing. That way you might be able to just practice things at your own leisure. We invite you to share what you're learning. There are the social media icons, hashtags to include. Yes, we are recording it. Since you registered, you will receive an email that gives you the link to view the recording later. It will also give you a link to the documents for tonight and a link for the certificate of attendance. Great questions. Thanks for finding the chat and asking the questions in the chat. I am so pleased that we have these two outstanding educators with us tonight as presenters. Valerie Hudson, Brenda Lynch. Valerie and Brenda, thank you so much. Please say hi and tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, I'm Valerie Hudson, and I am a retired Texas teacher, and I've been a T-Cubed, our Texas Instruments instructor, since 2006. I'm happy to be here with y'all tonight and share some of the strategies that helped my students in their Algebra 1 class.
And I'm Brenda Lynch. I'm glad to be here with you guys. I'm also a retired Texas educator and have helped work with calculators way back since the TI-82, the very first one. I forgot what the first one was. So I've been around a long time and watched all of this grow. So I'm very excited to share things with you tonight.
Thank you, ladies. I noticed you both said 81, but not 81. I noticed you both said retired, but I'm thinking maybe that's just you transitioned from one position to something else. I think you might have failed at retirement, but succeeded in continuing it in the education world. Yes. All right, a little bit about tonight.
So today, obviously, we're in the introduction phase, but you are going to be exploring strategies using the TI-Nspire, specifically using the graphing calculator and list applications on both the 84 and the Nspire. So we'll be asking a question shortly as far as which platform you use. So hold on. chat and we'll ask that question so we know where we're concentrating. We'll also be sharing some resources geared to the new STAAR question types. And of course, if you have any questions, we are happy to answer those. And there's a drawing, so Ruth knows about that.
So stay to the end, right?
Yes.
Our expected outcomes for this evening, we're going to use the calculator to assign values to a variable and evaluate expressions. We're going to graph functions and learn about trace and learn about the table. We're going to create lists and use the regression feature to model data and make predictions. And we're going to find resources. We have a plethora of resources for you guys to help our students in Texas prepare for the new STAAR item types on our assessment.
All right, thank you. Thank you for introducing. We'll find out more about you as we go along, and we are ready to go and learn out more about strategies for success. Thank you.
Awesome. So I want to share my screen with you, and here we go. So we've already introduced ourselves, but if you have any need to contact us, just take a picture of that, and then you have our email addresses. I've already told you a little bit of information about me and Brenda, but if you need that in written form, well, there you go. Oops, went too far. So in the chat, if you could please answer the question, which calculator do your students use? So you can just type an A or a B, and we're going to look at the chat just to see what you are thinking.
Well, it looks about even.
Okay.
Maybe a few more Inspire. Oh, Myra, I see that. I assume that means to switch to the Inspire. Hang in there. Oh, both. All right, good. So we're pretty mixed.
Okay, very good. So what we're going to do then is we'll talk about both platforms.
Good.
So this is just a couple of examples of a sample quiz that an 8th grade teacher or Algebra 1 teacher could give. And what you're going to be learning today are some, you can call them tricks, on using the calculator. And some of these tricks, the students don't have to know mathematics. Personally, I majored in math, and so even though I taught my students the tricks, when it was very close to the actual STAAR test, I did not teach them those tricks well in advance. So for learning a concept, I wanted my kids to know how to do the work themselves. So please, please, please do not take anything that we're going to share with you today and take it as if this is what we're recommending for presenting information to students and trying to teach them concepts, because no, it's not. What we are trying to do is just give you some tools that you can give your students for some alternate methods for solving various questions and using the calculator to help them. But in no means are we advocating just teaching, I can't even call it teaching, just using the calculator inappropriately. So since this is, of course, your classroom that we are talking about, you can grade however you like. Personally, I did not grade by the correct answer and then we moved on with life. Absolutely not. I insisted that my students showed their work. So this is just an example. If we had a 4-question quiz, how the breakdown of the points that were given was how I did it, how I graded my kids' work. So the solution was only 5 points out of a 25-point question.
So let's talk a minute. I see we have a few people from out of state, but for our Texas folks, the updated STAAR calculator policy, we gave you the page for that. The first blue box talks about the fact that a student must be given a calculator for the test. So they can be given any handheld device. They can be given a calculator app, or they can use the tool inside the testing platform. Now, the additional information section at the bottom, it says the student may provide a calculating device or students may bring them from home. So that may be something your district needs to decide on what procedure you're going to use if the students do bring them from home. If they bring them, they have to be set up and cleared cleared when the test is over also. And I love the statement in there that said they have to be like the ones they're using in class. And so Valerie and I looked at that and thought, we might need to share that too. Now, the second page on the STAAR calculator policy at the top, for the handhelds, the memory must be cleared back to factory defect both before and after the testing. So some of the teachers didn't know that. They knew they had to be cleared before, but they didn't know they had to be cleared after. I'm sure your district level people are aware of that. Now, if your device, whether it's the calculator app or the handheld device or the ones on the test are already set, three things have to be disabled. If your devices have a geometry function, that has to be turned off. If it has graphing implicit equations and inequalities, that has to be turned off. And I think for an Algebra 1 class, that's probably the one that the first year they turned that off, it was like, for some of my teachers. And then the third one was if your device calculates the mean absolute deviation, which the TIs do not, but some of the devices that might be used do, that would also have to be turned off. The third blue box says using the calculator device on the STAAR should not replace good teaching. So back to what Valerie said, we want you teaching the math. We want to encourage you with that. We're going to show you some ways to support that tonight. We in no way want you to just teach the shortcuts. But both she and I, when we were in the classroom, saved all those little quick things to the STAAR review, and the kids were saying, why didn't you show us this before? But they didn't understand. They wouldn't understand the math if we did that. The last blue box, the CAS calculators are not allowed on the test. So just to highlight some of the calculator policies. Now we're going to get started with an Algebra 1 example. Our session concentrates on Algebra 1 and 8th grade, and so we're going to talk about the fact that you can use the handhelds to assign or define a variable, give it a value, or we can use substitution for a problem that in the old test looked like this. Give it f of x equals 8 times the quantity of 3 minus 2x. What's the value of f of negative 10? And the old test said, record your answer and bubble it. Guys, bubbles are gone. Yay, no more bubbling. So the question might look like this. It's just the question. Question didn't change, but the new feature on here is they will have to enter their answer into the computer. So Valerie, click it one more time, and they're given an equation editor template. And I believe this is the Algebra 1 editor template, but the students will have the opportunity to either just type their answer on the keyboard, or they can push the buttons on the math editor template that's on their screen. So with an Nspire, their screen might look like this. Negative 10 stored as x, and then we type in the expression and hit enter, and it gives you the answer. Now, On the other hand, we could teach our kids to use substitution. So everywhere there's an X, we're going to stick in a -10. And so we would just type the expression with a -10 replacing the X, and this is what it might look like on the 84. But before we go on, Valerie, let's pull up the calculator and actually show some buttons.
Absolutely.
All right.
So I have the Nspire up right now.
Okay, now remember, if you have your Nspire in front of you, you're welcome to push buttons, but I know I talk fast and we may be going too fast for you, but this is recorded, so that's why we said you might choose to go back and slow it down and practice. So if we're going to do this, the first thing on the Nspire is I need to input -10s, but I'm going to add, I do this, add a calculator page. Now you'll notice that Valerie did not use the scratch pad. She went to adding a new document, and we really recommend that. So on a new calculator page, we're going to type -10. First thing you have to teach your kids is the difference between a negative and the minus sign. Now, where is the store key? Because that's always the question. It is above the 9 and above the VAR key, the variable key. To get to that STO arrow, you must click Control, the variable key, and we get the store. And now we're going to choose our variable. So we chose X, but guys, the cool thing is you can pick any letter when you're using the Nspire, and then press enter, and the calculator says, okay, I got it. -10 is going to be X. And then we type in the expression. So now she's going to enter 8 times the quantity of 3 minus 2X. And when she closes that parenthesis, she's going to hit enter.
But before I do that, I just wanted to point out that this X is bold, and that's how we know that we have something stored for X.
Yes, if it was still italicized, it wouldn't know what to do. Right, and then it does the math for the students. We can do a quick substitution, but let's show substitution on the 84. We can also show the store, because the store key is different on the 84.
Okay, so for store, the same process follows. We're going to type negative. Negative, of course, is next to enter, 10, and the store button here is a dedicated button. It's next to the 1. So there's our store button. And now I'm going to use the variable X, since that's what I was given in the problem. I could use an A if that's what I was given, but the X, I actually have a choice. I could choose the letter X by pressing alpha and then X, or store again, or I could just use the X that we use for graphing. And I'm going to press enter. And so now I have stored that value since it was repeated. And just like we did on the Nspire, I'm going to type the expression, being careful to type the minus sign and not the negative. Always have to say that to the kids. And we have the same result. So for the substitution version, same idea, just like it shows here in our example. We've got 8, we've got the quantity 3 minus 2, and then we're substituting in that -10. Of course, the store feature does that substitution for us nicely, but you don't have to use store if you don't want to. And we get the same result. Now, those same button presses would happen on the Nspire as well.
And this is a good time to just mention the habit of any time our students remove a variable and substitute a value in for it, to start teaching them to put that in parentheses, and like we did here.
So another way that we can solve this problem is to use our table set after we type the equation in a function entry line. So what we'll be doing is going to table setup, which we can do on both platforms, on the 84 and the Nspire. We're going to set our independent values to ask. We are not going to touch the dependent at all. And then we're going to go to our table and we'll see the result there. So I'm going to go to my y equals. I already have something there, so let me clear that out. And I'm going to type that function, 8 times the quantity, 3 minus 2x. And if I graph it, great. But what I'm looking for is that idea of table set. So I'm going to press second window, which is table set. And I've already turned my independent to ask because I've been practicing this. But if you'll also notice, there's other things that we can do on this table. We can have our table start wherever we want. We don't have to start at -10. We can change our table to advance however we want. So if I wanted to advance by fourths, I could do that. But again, I wanted to turn my independent to ask. The default is to be on auto. So you see how auto is selected there, but I'd go over to ask and then press enter. And now when I go to my table, I don't have anything. And sometimes the kids freak out a little bit at this point because they're used to having the table filled out for them, but it's not filled out because we haven't asked the table for anything. So I want to know the value of the function when x is -10. I'll type -10 and then enter. And I love this whole idea of independent to ask, especially for those questions on the STAAR where the answer choices are tables, because then your students can try to match the tables they're given.
And the ask feature is also very good if our X values are very large, because if they just graphed it and went to table and they have to hold down the up or down arrow on the calculator, they may get tired or bored. And so let's look at another way to do it. It looks just like that on the Inspire. Let's look at the way to graph it and use the trace function. So on the Inspire, we're going to add a graphs page. And then when we get the graphs page, we're going to just go to the menu, press graph menu. When we graph it, press the menu button and hit trace graph trace. And then we're going to enter the value we want to find. So let's practice that.
All right, so I'm going to need a new piece of paper. That's what I'm calling it. New piece of paper on my calculator. And I'm not saving changes. I'm going to go to a graphs page, as Brenda said. And if you'll notice, I have the grid on the screen, which we can talk about in a little bit if you don't know how to put it on there. But I'm going to go ahead and type that function. Another good use for both of these methods, obviously we are given -10 that we're dealing with, but if we're given a decimal, you know, the decimal is not going to show up on the table. So going to table set, that's very nice. Or doing what we're getting ready to do here. That'll be nice for those situations as well. All right, Brenda.
All right, so once we graph the line, we've hit enter and it just automatically graphs. Now we're going to press the menu button and we select the graph. And I never go by numbers. So, or the trace graph trace number 5, but I don't teach by numbers. I look for the word. So we want to trace our graph and we want to graph trace. So we press the graph trace. And now, do you notice in the bottom right corner where it has the order pair 0, I think that says 24, that I want to trace -10. So I just type -10 and hit enter. And there in the bottom right corner is my 184, my solution. And I like how you commented, Valerie, that we could do a decimal. So what if it was 8 3600ths? I could type that in. It would go straight there, and that would not be on the table. But maybe I don't want to do graph trace because I can't remember the steps. I can also, another way to get to the answer is to hit from this screen. Anytime you want to get to the table, you Control T. And now it starts at 1. It always starts at 1 for the first time. So I'm going to arrow to my -10. So that's pretty close to 0. If it was 237 or something like that, I would not like this method. And when I get to -10, there is my solution of 184.
And the question in the chat is, will that work on the first Nspires? Absolutely, absolutely. Also, if you'll notice how we're demonstrating right now, we're just showing the calculator itself. And I have selected always in front. So if you have the Nspire software, you would do the same. Normally when I'm presenting for kids, I'll have keypad and side screen, and it just jumped off my page here, but here it is. But I'm going to switch that from keypad and side screen to handheld only. And again, if I select always in front, then it will always be in front of whatever I'm doing. The same thing for the 84. Let me slide that over a little bit. For the 84, if I want this always in front, then I will go to view and always in front on my software. So just a little strategy for teaching with the
Because
software.
we know a lot of you guys have PowerPoints, or you use the OneNote or something where you're writing on your device in front of the kids, or writing on the smart board, and it's really nice to have that calculator showing without the keystroke key.
And there's a question, how do we get the software? Well, one of the last screens that we'll show will be for your ETCs for Texas. If you're not in Texas and you need the software, you can still request with the same I should say QR code that you'll be seeing. So you can reach out to the ETC for your area, whether you're in Texas or elsewhere in the country. I did say I was going to talk about I'm sorry, Brenda. I did say I was going to talk about how to put the grid on the screen. So I'm going to do that really quick. So
Yes.
first of all, Brenda said Control T to pull up the table on the Nspire. I'm going to Control T to make it go away, as it is a toggle switch. And so what you'll need to do, if you want the grid to show up on your Nspire screen every time you open a document, you'll go to Menu and then Settings, and then you want Line Grid, and then OK. If you just want it whenever the kids put it on, then that would be Menu, and then View, and then Grid, and then they choose the grid they want.
And once it's set, it stays, right, until you turn it off?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we had a question about, is there a way to have a fraction as an answer in the table? If you do, as an well, so as opposed to what? As opposed to a decimal? So I may need clarification on that. On that question. We'll come back to it. Do you know, Valerie?
Yeah, I think so. It's been forever since I've done that, but I will say I think so. But one way you can find out for sure is Ruth, help me. What is the phone number for Texas Instruments? It has just left me just like that.
1-800 TI cares? Is that what
Thanks.
we're asking?
The easy one. Yes.
Easy one.
If you have a function defined that has a fraction in it, then the table will display a fraction. For example, on your y equals of your 84, if you put y equals 1/2 and you wrote it as a fraction with your fraction template, when you looked at a table, then I think you would probably get fractions displayed. It's how the function is defined often.
Right. Yeah. Typically, fractions in, fractions out, decimals in, decimals out. So the way you enter them. So, oh, thank you for putting that in 1-800 TI cares. Yes. You can get everything answered there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so let's look. I think I even went through the Control T on the PowerPoint. I think we're good.
Yep, we did.
Okay.
All right. So now we are going to talk about the how to do a linear regression with data.
I'm going to just step in here. Somebody says,
Please do.
does the line grid work only on the CX2?
Oh, absolutely not. Let me go back over here. Good questions, y'all. So I'm going to go to my graph and notice I have a line grid. Oh my goodness, how did I get it? Well, I went to format, second zoom, which is format, and I came down to the third line, which was had a default of grid off. So now I'm going to come over here to grid line, press enter, and that is how I got my lines. And those are on there all the time. And the same thing for using settings on the Nspire, you'll have your grid all the time for that. Let's see, is there a handheld view or software for an iPad? There is software for iPad. I don't know. Ruth, I know you put that other link in the chat. If you could find that.
I can put the iPad link in there. I don't think there's
Okay.
just a handheld view on the
Yeah,
iPad app.
I haven't used that.
If you have a CX and not a CX2, you can still get the line grid to show up. Yes. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's see. Nspire CX does display fraction for X coordinates, but not Y coordinates when you set it to ask. Okay. And yes, you can rejoin if you have a bad connection. All right, so what we're going to do is have our table. We're going to enter our data in this table here, and we'll need to go to stat edit on the 84. So I'll be doing that shortly. After that, obviously, we'll have our list, and then we'll do our linear regression calculation from stat calc, and we'll store that equation. So if we don't know how to store or the shortcut for store, then we'll show that in just a sec. And then we'll find our linear regression value and then be able to answer the question about the 236 people. So going to my stat edit, I didn't want to have to type all of that, and y'all just look at me type. So it's there already, but I just went to stat edit. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to stat and then arrow over to calc, and I want a linear regression. My X list is L1. If L1 doesn't show up for you, if it's like L4 or whatever, then all you have to do is press second and then 1, because above that is L1. And the same thing for Y list. I want L2 because that's where I entered my values. And then I'm going to come down here to store regression equation. And there's a convoluted way of doing this or a shortcut. I like shortcuts. So I'm going to press alpha and then trace or F4. And where do I want to store this? In Y1. And then I'm going to come down here to calculate, enter, and there's my regression. So if we need a correlation coefficient, if we don't see that, then we need to turn that on in the catalog and then go back and find that linear regression again. So let me just show you really quick. Catalog, if we need that, that's second 0. And I would need to turn diagnostics on. Diagnostics starts with a D. So I'm going to press D, which is the inverse button, and then arrow all the way down here to diagnostics on and press enter. And then I'd be able to get that information for the correlation coefficient if I didn't have it originally, but I already have it. So I have my regression information. It's already stored. Where did I store it? Y1. So let me go to Y equals and check that. Hey, look, there it is. Awesome. So now I want to answer my question. How much would be the total cost of lunches for an office of 236 people? So let me go back to the home screen. Second mode, I'm going back. And I stored this in Y1, correct? So it would be really nice, instead of having to go back to Y1, what was that equation? I don't remember. It's okay. I'm just going to recall Y1 by using that shortcut that I just showed you. Alpha, trace, or F4. I'm going to call up Y1. And that is the function that I want, the value of that function when we have an office of 236 people is what I'm looking for. So just like function notation, I need to put that 236 in parentheses and enter. And that is the cost of the lunches.
We have several comments in the chat about being able to turn the diagnostics on with the mode screen in the 84. And yes, you can do that.
Yep, absolutely. I guess I'm old school because there's diagnostics on right there. Old school, just remembering going through the catalog, but it's nice to know what's in the catalog. So I guess that's why I do it. All right.
All right, so now we want to look at this very same problem, but we want to look at it on an Inspire and how to build a list in spreadsheet and find regressions from there, and talk about a few features that are offered on about setting up our page. So, are you pulling up the
Yeah, because I didn't want to have to
table?
Or
If you're doing this at home, you would just open a new document, and we tell the kids if you're in class, you don't save. So we go to new document. But I want to show you, go below in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th icon, the list in, is it, no, I think where's the fast way? Now, is it the middle one that's the list in spreadsheet? I don't use those icons.
Oh, this one.
Yeah, the green
Yeah.
one. I don't use those a lot, but that is a fast way. The kids love those because they don't like the fewer buttons you can push, the better. So here we are in our list and spreadsheet, and we need to enter our values. So they are there. Now, you'll notice in the 84, you have a L1 for list 1 and L2. We don't have a title in the Inspire. So we're going to up arrow twice to the A box for column 1. And this is really cool because I can make the title of my column whatever I want it to be. And since we're talking about lunches, we're going to use the alphabet at the bottom and type the word lunches. Now notice it is italicized until you hit enter. And once you hit enter, it becomes straight Helvetica. That means that is now a variable. So now we're going to right arrow over and right arrow up to the B cell, and that's going to be our dependent variable, which is cost. So we're going to type the word cost. And then, now here's a careful thing. When you are, notice she did not hit enter to go down, she hit down arrow. Sometimes when you enter, you get the function key and the kids are going, what do I do? So if that happens from your, if you get an option to enter some information. We don't want that, so we're going to down arrow instead of hitting enter from that box. Now then, I usually go below my last, so arrow down, there we go. When I have entered my $101 and either 80 or 84 cents, can't read, we want to insert we want to look at the graph. What does it look like? But there is a quick way to do that. So I'm going to go to menu, and I want to enter a graph, a data. So we're going to go down today and look at the very bottom. The last one is quick graph. So we're going to select quick graph, and yay, we get a quick graph of it. Ooh, but something's wrong with my graph. I didn't expect it to look like that. Well, in the Inspire, we get to label our axes, and so many times the kids will do a graph and never even read those words. So I'm going to have Valerie go over and hover over the word cost at the bottom. My independent variable is not cost, but when I hover over it, I get the option of picking either lunches or cost. So she's going to select lunches, and nothing happens. And so now it's because my y-axis is not labeled. So hover over the label for the y. And when we do that, we should be able, you may have to click on it if it didn't come up automatically. And there, our y, our dependent variable is cost. And magic happens. Ta-da! All the points go to match the data in the graph. Now, Is anybody out there going, oh, that's so much on one page, it's crowded? To me, it's very crowded, it's very hard to work with. So I want to show you, I've got all this work on one page. I want to rip my page in half and look at them one at a time. So I'm going to change the way the document looks. So I press the dock key and go down to page layout. It happens to be number 5. And when I get to page layout, when I right arrow at the very bottom, it says ungroup. And so we're going to go to the very bottom and press ungroup. And when we do that, oh no, my graph went away. So where did it go? It's separated now. My table is page 1, and at the top, 1.2 is now my graph. So we can, let's see, we're going to find from there to see where we're going to do. Oh, we're going to analyze the regression. Since we're on the graphs page, let's just analyze it from there, but then I'll go back and show you how to do it from the table. So we want the calculator to do some work for us. Anytime we want it to work, we press menu. And we're going to go down to analyze. We want the calculator or the handheld to do our analyzing for us, do our thinking for us. And then we want to go to regression. We want it to find the regression. And I like this. One of the updates, they moved the one we use the most often to the very top, the MX plus B. So we'll press enter. And ta-da! It pops on the graph. It gives me the equation right there. So that's kind of nice. But what happens if I do it from the table? So go back to page 1.1 and let's do the same thing. We want the calculator to find our regression for us. So we're going to press menu. And we want to go to this page. It is the is it data? Let me think. Stat. Yes, stat. I have to always think. I usually look. And now we want to do stat calculations. And when we get stat calculations, oh, it went
Okay,
too
I think
far.
I pressed the wrong thing. I'm just going to point out, we are not referring to numbers in the menu. And I know that a lot of teachers like to do that. But please be aware that when Texas Instruments upgrades the operating system, sometimes the numbers change, and that's going to mess up your kids. So the wording never changes, and there's really good vocabulary in the menu. So I highly, highly, highly recommend not just referring to menu options as numbers. And also, Brenda, I think I need to get out of the first column, right?
Oh, I always go to I could be under the 19 or the cell under the $101.84. I just always go to an empty cell. And
You always go to the bottom.
I always go to that one.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, awesome.
So here we go. So we'll do menu.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to do statistics. And stat calculations. And when we click that one, there we go. And we want to do our linear regression.
Mm-hmm. I think my cursor is just
it's jumping around
when
I was practicing.
Loose today.
All right, so where our X list is not F1 or whatever, B whatever, that's not it. So we have to press the right arrow over there and pick our lunches. Then we'll go down and pick for our Y list is going to be our cost. We want to store the equation in F1 of X. That's good. Our frequency is great. And so I think we're ready to go to the bottom and press OK.
Yeah, and I also want to point out our first result column is C because my cursor was in column B. So our first result column will be the next column over.
So if I was in column C, it would be column D. It's always going to bump one. So notice it added some information there. It gives me the y equals mx plus b is the regression. It tells me the m, the b, the r squared, and the r. It gives me all of that information right up front. But now I still need to answer the question. So I can go to the table and do what we demonstrated in the beginning. I can go to and hit menu trace, graph trace, and type in our 236 people. I can
So
go
should I
to,
add a page? So should
so
I add a
we
page?
can add, oh wait, let's add a graphs page because we didn't do that on the Inspire
Okay.
before.
Okay.
So let's add a graphs
Okay.
page.
Okay.
I mean, calculator page. Add a calculator. We did not do
Okay.
that a while ago on this one. Add a calculator
Okay.
page.
So I press Control Doc to add a page, and you said calculator page. All right.
And now we know the equation. I can do maybe what your kids, I know the equation is, I believe it was 5.36x. So I can
Mhm.
type, use substitution and type 5.36 times, put in my 236 and get an answer. So it kind of is a review of what we did at the beginning.
What was it? 236.
236.
Okay.
And I can also use my functionality. I can type, and I can select F1 of X, but I can type F1 of 236.
Right. And notice that F, let me just do this again. So when I type the F, I have just regular italics, but when I type that 1, the calculator remembers, oh yeah, you stored something there.
Mm-hmm. And then enter the 236, and press enter.
Yep. Perfect.
There we go.
And someone typed in the chat, how do you clear the Inspires for testing? We are going to give you some links so you can get that information.
So I think
Yeah,
those were the pages. We went through all of those steps. Those are in your handout.
Yep.
So you want to talk about hotspots?
Yes, and we have to go fast because we only have 14 minutes. Oh my goodness.
Yes. Okay.
So this is one of the new question types on the STAAR test, or the upcoming STAAR test. And obviously this is called hotspot, where we have more than one answer that at the same time that students have to find. So on either platform of calculator, we can graph and just look at the graph and identify what we need. So I'm going to go really, really quick. Of course, you can do what I'm getting ready to do on either platform, but I'm just going to go to a new document. I always had my kids go to a new document every time because they needed a new piece of paper every time. And I'm going to graphs, and I'm going to type 20, and the quantity, notice I'm typing exactly as written. And I want the fraction template, 1/4.
And if you didn't notice, when she got the fraction template, that was control divide.
And I want my exponent to be x. I'm pressing enter, and I can zoom out or grab the whole page and see where my y-intercept is. There's a plethora of ways we can find our y-intercept information and identify the asymptote, possibly by graphing y=0 or whatever we think. But the result for the student would be, as you can see. So some of the questions we'll just leave blank because y=1 and y=4 don't have a purpose in this particular question. Then there's also drag and drop. Do you want to talk about that one?
Sure, and I'll let you go ahead, and if you want to bring it up on the Inspire and type it in while I'm talking. So
Okay.
we're going to add a graphs page if the students needed to, we know the power of graphing. So even if I'm not sure what to put in the blanks, I can go look at the picture, part of that multiple representations. Now, just a disclaimer here, we've not seen any STAAR question, even item type proposed that has this many blanks. So this is kind of a lot, but let's look at it. When I get it graphed and I press enter, then I'm thinking this equation represents what kind of function? Ah, I know that. That's an exponential function. So then that word exponent will go in the first blank. And when I touch it and read it from left to right, it's going up. So it's an exponential growth. And what kind of asymptote does an exponential function have? It has a horizontal asymptote. And if we had time, we would graph that and show you it's at y=0. And so a way to use the picture, it doesn't say graph, but our kids can use the picture to help them fill in the blanks.
And I think it's very helpful for kids to graph whenever they possibly can, just to visualize what's going on. There's one thing I did want to show you on the 84 that I didn't show you before, and that is how to get the template for the fraction if we ever need that. And so if I'm in a graph page or wherever, I would press alpha F1, and there's my fraction template. So we can pull that up in a graph in a y equals screen or calculator page, wherever we need it.
And if you press alpha y equals and that doesn't happen, then you need to upgrade your operating system.
Right, right. Okay, so Brenda is going to talk about the Texas assessment.
All right, so we have
We only have 8 minutes, really.
Okay, so we're gonna go fast. So
Yeah.
so I would recommend, that's why we're taping, so you can come back and look. But there are several things on the new about the new item types on the texasassessment.gov website. So if you want a QR code, that's great. Valerie's gonna take us to that screen. She already put that URL in, and I want to just show you what the front screen looks like. Go ahead and flip through the next slide for just a minute so that they can, I see the steps, and then, yeah. So what's going to happen when you get to this, you're going to go to the bottom and look for online tests, practice tests. Then you get the screen that says sign in. Don't change anything, just click sign in. You'll pick your grade level, and they have practice items for all of the tested grade levels and all of the tests. So if you teach science, there's stuff there for you too. Once you select your grade level, then you will go to find these two items, the redesigned practice test or the STAAR new item types. I recommend that you work with the STAAR new item types first with your students, because there's lots of examples in there. And then the second thing you would do is the redesigned practice test. Now that practice test is actually built off the new blueprint, which deals with points instead of problems. And so the whole grading system changes. When you pick the STAAR redesign or the new item types, you're going to scroll all the way down to math, and then we're going to see what that looks like. Now we may not get all of those buttons pushed, but this is what the front page looks like. And just scroll all the way. Notice everything for math is at the bottom. So we'll click the practice test. And we just click sign in, because we leave all of that just as it is. Pick our grade level. And I would select, yep, your Algebra 1 EOC. And let's do STAAR new item types. And then scroll to math. And then click on that button. Now on this screen, there's lots of things you can change. I recommend the first time through, don't change anything. Hit select and begin test. And this gets you to examples of all the new item types. Your kids can do this. You can do this. It's got the math templates in it. It's great practice. So the hardest thing I will tell you is the kids do not know how to go to the next question, because next is in the top left corner instead of on the right. And then off they go.
Yep, very nice. Thank you.
So I see questions. Do we get this information by email? You will get an email of the presentation with the code for the presentation when we're finished.
Sorry about that. I was trying to make this bigger. Okay, so then other resources. So there are pre-made questions by TEK for TI-Nspire users. Sorry, we do not have them for the 84 because with the Nspire, it's just easier to deliver those questions to a calculator. So if you go to this website or use the QR code here, then you're going to enter some identifying information, and then you'll be taken to a website where you can download alignments that are by TEK for grades, I want to say 6 through high school. So obviously 8th grade in Algebra will be there, as well as questions by TEK for 8th grade and Algebra 1. So let's see if I can get there really quick. That's why I had my little deal back here. And I'm going to go here. This is where the URL would take you. Obviously, that's my information, so you'll need to enter yours. But this is what you'll see once you type in your information. And you would select Algebra 1 or 8th grade math if you are part of TEKS resource system for your curriculum, Algebra 1 or 8th grade math, whichever you need. I'm going to go to Algebra 1 really quick. And this is my downloads folder, so I've downloaded it a lot. But the questions by TEK are here. And obviously here are all of our standards. And there's at least 2 or 3 questions here. I would say at least half of them include the new item types. And the same thing goes for 8th grade. There's 2 versions. One is self-check, and one is just regular questions where the students will have to be told what the answers are. And if you have Navigator system, then it's very, very easy to send those questions to your students. So that is one of our resources. Another resource, Texas specific. So for the question, how do we prepare our calculators for testing? You want the Texas specific resources because that link will help you. And then TI student camps, if you're interested in having any of our TI coaches come out and work with your students and show them various strategies, then the TI student camps are there for not just EOC, but also for Algebra 1, I'm sorry, for ACT and SAT and TSIA. So just be aware of that. Time, it looks like we have just a couple minutes, but let me go ahead and share Math-Inspired with you. And Math-Inspired is where you can get pre-made activities, which are also located in the alignment file of that very first link that I sent you. But all of our activities are there for math, and you can search by standard there if you like, or just search by topic. And then if you're interested in any of our workshops, because we have a lot of those too, then there's the link.
And these are not Texas. These are not Texas specific either, right?
Correct. So all of the workshops are all of the offerings that Texas Instrument has, so not necessarily just for Texas. So I'm going to go to the very last slide because I know Ruth has something about a drawing, but these are the 2 ETCs, or Education Technology Consultants for Texas. And hello, go back there. And if you need to contact them or any of the education technology consultants for the country, that QR code right there will help you. I'm going to stop and let Ruth take over.
Thank you so much, ladies. And thank you, people, with your questions and comments in the chat panel throughout the event. Remember, if you're viewing this live and you have the features on your device with the WebEx platform, you can save the chat so that you have information that was shared, links, and other helpful tips that were shared throughout the session. All right, they're going to be monitoring the chat for a little bit, so if you have some questions, go ahead and pop those in there. They've also included their contact information in that document. And drum roll, please. All right. So the lucky winner is Mayra Perez from Texas. All right, congratulations. Yay! You should be receiving an email with information about selecting your calculator and where to send it and everything. So congratulations. A little bit further up in the chat, I did share the link for downloading documents, all of these wonderful slides that the ladies prepared for you. That link will also come to you in email. And if I can find it, I'll put it in the chat again right now. Also, you will have an opportunity to get a certificate of attendance. So the link coming in the chat right now is a link to the documents. You will get that in an email. Download a certificate of attendance. You can go ahead and do that now, or you can wait to find that email. Here is the link coming to you in the chat. So in a few days, you'll get a link to the recording, a link to the documents, and a link to your to creating your certificate of attendance. Post-webinar follow-up, questions, and yes, there's 1-800-TI-CARES. Information about the technical questions. You will also get these slides in the associated documents, not just the powerful presentation we had from the ladies, but also some other information here that might be useful. Upcoming webinars. You found this one, you registered for it, so go ahead and register for some of the other upcoming webinars. That's it for me. Thank you both so much for your presentation tonight and for sharing great resources and your documents. Thank you everybody out here who joined us, and thank you those of you who are watching the recording of this.